An aggressive Jason Tatum triple doubles in an epic win against the Dallas Mavericks. Great games from Smart and Grant Williams as well. Plus, Noah Vonleh traded next on First to the Floor.
Who was going to be first to the floor here? And it was Marcus Smart, as he usually is.
Brown drives.
That's not the first time we've seen a superstar in green and white sacrifice his body.
Knocked away.
Hey, welcome into another episode of First to the Floor. Ben Vallis here. Thank you for joining us. Hope you're doing well. Joining us on this one, Celtics connoisseur, Jackson, a.k.a. Rickman Lives. Jackson, how you doing, sir?
Very well. I got my Gino t-shirt on. I had it on for the playback, but I also have it on here today. Justified. Doing very well. Thanks, sir.
Nice. Good to hear. Also joining us, Jake Eisenberg, somewhere near the border between New South Wales and Victoria, Australia. Jake, welcome back to the grid. Welcome back to the podcast. Happy New Year, sir. How you doing?
Good. Back on the grid. I left the Celtics for good, and I've come back, and the Celtics are still really good. I'm sure there was nothing that happened in the middle there.
Jake Eisenberg, have you been in a fugue state?
I went on. That's it. I just had to vision quest.
And also joining us, introducing himself there, Joe, our New Zealand correspondent. Joe, how you doing, man? Welcome back.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, well, we're all a box of fluffy ducks after a win, aren't we? So let's talk about it.
Nothing less. Guys, the Celtics, they just straight up dominated the Mavericks, 124-95. Jackson, we'll start with you. What were your main takeaways from this one? We'll do a bit of around the room here.
My main takeaway is just we responded because, you get the absolute, shell-shocking beatdown of 150 points to set 117 against the Thunder. And you think to yourself, like, on one hand, yeah, this just could be a night off that they're having, they're hitting everything. But, like, is there some deeper, real, issue with this team? To come back against an MVP candidate in Luka Doncic and a team that I think was 4th or 5th in the West, by no means an easy assignment, and to just blow them out by 30, it just reaffirms that, I think this team is very capable of getting out of adversity, and, really alleviates whatever concerns I had, a couple of hours ago, because this was just the performance that you needed. So just a great bounce back performance by the guys.
I don't know if they're ever going to learn the lessons that they need to learn. That the league has gotten so good and so talented that if you just take a night off and think that you can just kind of roll in and beat someone, you're just going to lose. It could be the Spurs the next game. I don't know if they're going to have learned their lesson after this little mini slide here and then get back on track, but you have to turn up. And when they play the right way and they play as hard as they did tonight, I still think they're the best team in the league. It's just when they take the foot off the gas, they can look really bad.
They really take it off the gas.
Yeah. But
yeah. I'm almost, making it up as we go, and the classic style that which we're accustomed to. I almost wonder whether it plays to our advantage, against the heliocentric type teams. I wonder if defensively we're a little better equipped to do that. Maybe we just find it a little easier to key in on one dominant player. I'm just wondering if, Luke, it was easier for us to defend Luka, and given the nature of the Dallas, the way they play, maybe that's just easiest for us to play defense against.
I mean, he has cooked us on occasion, but this year especially, I think we've done a really good job on him. And I think broadly that's actually pretty accurate. I mean, Embiid, there's no better team that playing Embiid than the Celtics. Giannis, similar. KD is like the Celtics are the only team that's been able to slow him down from being the best player in the league at all in the kind of the last 12 months. So, yeah, I think those types of teams, yeah. And maybe, again, that's a mentality thing. That those superstars are coming to town and the whole team's ready to lock in. They're more locked in on when to double, when to dig.
I feel they take the
really
challenge on, if they're
Yeah.
challenged and and there's like, is it something that like really means something here? We got to stop this guy from, dominating us. Yeah, probably the Nuggets game aside. They just seem to rise to the challenge. Whereas if it's opponent that, has all the makings of a trap game, that is like, they're a little bit like, la-di-da about it. So, I think that rings true for sure.
They did seem, I mean, you guys have already touched on it as well, but just generally more locked in on both ends. And for me, it was just like nice to see that they still know how to be that way, like to be the old Celtics that we came to know and love early on in the season. We hadn't seen them act that way in the Nuggets game, really. I mean, a lot of people are saying that the Nuggets, like, they played well and it just came down to shooting variance. I maintain that the Celtics' lackluster defense in the early part of that game led to that high percentage shooting from the Nuggets. And then the OKC game, sure, an anomaly, 150 points from an SGA-less Thunder, sure. Like, take what you will from that. But in this game, like, there wasn't that let-up period, except maybe in the fourth quarter where they did let them claw back a little bit. They came out strong, playing decisively, playing some of that 0.5 basketball, and never really let up. So it was just good to see them be their old selves again, I suppose, which is not something that we've seen in a little while. Getting down to some of the individual performances, the name, obviously Jason Tatum is the first one that jumps off the page. His second career triple-double. We'll come back to Tatum. Jake, I was really impressed with Marcus Smart's one-on-one defense on Luka Doncic. Doncic gets his own and did get his own, like, statistically in this game, but I thought that he was really severely limited by Marcus Smart. What did you see from Smart in this one, Jake?
Depoy Smart was out there tonight. The play that sticks out, Rob and Marcus had him kind of cornered in the bottom right corner, kind of on the screen if you're watching the YouTube right now. And usually you see those highlights of Luka that kind of looks one of those double team defenders off and fires a pass to an open 3-point shooter. When Marcus is playing at this level defensively, it's the ability to stay in front. And what makes Luka so tough to guard is that he's so strong, and Marcus has always been a guy that's been able to guard 1 through 5. Everybody, people love posting him up because he's short. It's surprising. It's always surprising that people around the league still haven't learned that posting Marcus Smart up is never a good idea. But yeah, he was coordinating, communicating, getting everybody in the right spot. Look at these, just getting the arms back. Just Luka's been making a lot of these shots, and then the difference being to throw on one of the best perimeter defenders of the past 5 to 10 years on him makes his night a lot more difficult.
Ball pressure, eh? Ball pressure. I almost thought in the playback, I was like, I'm surprised I didn't just outright deny him, make someone else bring the ball up. I would have been really interesting to see Luka really have to work to get hold of the ball in the first instance. But maybe that's something you save for a playoff adjustment or something like that. I don't know. But there was certainly sufficient pressure tonight to make him uncomfortable, clearly. Yeah.
It seemed that he picked up an injury as well too, and you could naysayers might say that it was the injury that was keeping him from being his best, but you can't deny that the job that Marcus was doing on him, and when the doubles were coming over, it was fantastic. And you look at the stat sheet and you think, oh yeah, that's maybe a little bit below average Luka Doncic game. In reality, he was well below average tonight. We made him look nowhere near the MVP type of caliber player that he was. He had to rely heavily on free throws to get those numbers up. You take that out of the equation, then it's just it's a very, very poor game from him.
I know. Luka, sorry, Ben. Luka does this. If he's not having a good game, doesn't happen that often. The injuries tend to pop up. I have a feeling he won't be on the injury report for the next game, or he'll play the next game. Raphael at Hoopist NBA, my favorite Mavs follow. He said the same thing. Oh yeah, you're having a crap night. Shocking that the ankle's starting to not feel so good all of a sudden on national TV. Yeah. I think Luka he's going to be all right.
Like that whole thing about
23.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Joe.
Oh, there's that whole thing about when guys miss a shot, they'll like look at their hands and wipe them on their shorts.
Yes.
Same sort of thing.
That's my post-miss routine as well in my Redfern C grade league. 7 for 23 with the shooting numbers, 30.4% from Luka in this one. Clearly troubled by the Celtics defense, spearheaded by Marcus Smart there. I guess getting to some other individual performances, we should go back to Jason Tatum. Jackson, 10 assists. I'm seeing some noise on Twitter, particularly from non-Celtics fans, about little concern about crediting that 10th assist to Jason Tatum. There was a lot of time between the pass and the Derek White finish there, which we might see at the tail end of this highlight clip that we're running.
Yeah.
Dare I ask how you feel about that? I'm sure you're going to feel quite positive towards it, given you're a Celtics fan.
Look, yeah, I mean, of course, it's great to see, because I think like the recipe for MVP this year is to average a triple double, but like, a 30, a 15, and a 10 and 11, is got to be your kind of numbers there. So to see him sort of get in amongst that action is cool. Look, they take that last assist off him, or like whether it was an assist or not, like who gives a shit, man? Like he probably didn't have his best game to be fair until probably the back end of the third quarter and throughout most of the fourth. But like you need your players to deliver in the fourth and to like just keep that game from sliding back into a contest, which it very nearly did. So no, I thought he did everything he needed to. Like his shot wasn't there to start with.
There it is.
Yeah.
That's
I wasn't watching. I know. Wait,
it's not an assist, for goodness sake.
I think if you jab step, you have to nullify like the assist straight away. So if they take it off him, then so be it. But look, if the shot is not falling for him, then I want him to pass the ball, and he did. And 10 assists, 9 assists, whatever you call it, it's still a 29-point win that he was integral in. So it's a great showing from Tatum overall.
Look, if you play the player prop gambling game with assists, you know that there's some wild inconsistencies with how they track these assists. I know back when I used to play like NBA Live, 06, 07, you're trying to hit your guys triple doubles. It was like you get away with one dribble, like maybe. So like, you throw a fast break pass outlet, you get one dribble so they can kind of get a layup. The fact that you get 2 dribbles for an assist, I wonder if there was someone from St. Louis on the scorecard tonight, tracking some of that stuff. It's an old childhood friend potentially.
Dick Lat,
that's what they need to. That's what the NBA needs to open up, or an independent review board needs to open up the dubious assist panels and go back. And it turns out that Russell Westbrook season, no, it was actually 8.2 assists rather than whatever it was. So maybe one day in the future,
Stockton. Yeah, this is the John Stockton theory. Is that like his assist numbers are just so significantly inflated because in Utah it was like he was getting like 40% extra assists because of the home cooking.
Yeah.
To me, it goes to show like how flawed assists are.
Yeah.
Because Tatum made the right play, and so did Derek White. It was not an assist. Absolutely not. Derek White had to pump fake then drive. It didn't directly lead to the basket. But both guys made the right play there, and that's what actually counts. And if he was going to chase an assist there, he might have probably was more likely to turn it over. The ball gets stickier. But it wasn't. He made the right play. It just wasn't an assist. So, hey, I'm happy to. I'm happy for it to be rescinded. We got the win because of that sort of mentality.
Yeah, but it does kind of speak to like, yeah, you're right. And Tatum doesn't get big assist numbers, and in part due to like the way that the Celtics play the ball movement. He's not heliocentric at all. But that's part of why he's always been an insane. Advanced metric guy. Like whenever he's on the court, he's bringing you elite defense, and on the other end, he's kind of making the right play and pushing the offense in the right direction. So yeah, Tatum's never been and we were on the playback. I was just watching you guys in the chat, and you guys were all pushing for the triple double, as was I. And he just loaded up for another step back 3. I don't think he cares at all about the triple double. He'd much prefer to go for 42 and 2 than 10, 12 and 12.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's Mamba mentality over Magic mentality, for sure.
There's a great comment here in the chat from Jeffrey Francis, citing Chris Forsberg. J to J assists last season, 72. This season, 65 already, which was amazing. And Sports Aptitude, our buddy Eric Weiss in the chat, mentioning Grant Williams, who we're going to get to in a second. But
Yes,
before we
sir.
move on, I just feel like rather than nitpicking on Tatum's 10th assist, we should actually talk about his impact in the game overall a little bit. He was very aggressive coming out in this game. Didn't shoot particularly well. We've got the box score up on the screen, 8 for 22 from the floor, 2 for 8 from 3, but was consistent in his aggressiveness and actually getting downhill, getting to the bucket. And then those 10 assists come from the passing lanes that were opened by the defense, just collapsing on his incessant driving constantly throughout the game. Joe, did you see anything different from Tatum in this one? Because it did feel like he was sort of dialing it up a little bit based on the team's recent performances.
I think it was clearly aggressive about getting into the paint. I mean, I feel like I'm not giving anyone any great insight there, but he wasn't looking for that step back, right? And I don't really love that step back that much, so I was pretty happy about that. When the ball hits the paint, good things happen, and Tatum made that happen a lot tonight.
Anyone else, Jake or Jackson, any sort of parting thoughts on Tatum before we move on? Clearly, the people want Grant Williams talk, so we have to move on.
Yes, I love it. I love it.
Happy to go there.
Oh,
Who
no,
wants,
yeah,
who
me.
wants to take us there? Take
Yeah.
us to Grantland? Jackson.
Well,
or
I
Jake?
mean, I'm down. Yeah, as you said, on the border of Victoria and New South Wales in this weird house. Like, if you go to my Twitter, and you can see my setup. I've got my computer like on a lamp with like, if I touch this, we're going down. And I got done watching the game with a couple of friends that aren't, big basketball fans, and Grant Williams was cooking early, and they're like, "Wait, didn't you in the podcast interview his dad?" And I'm like, "We did indeed.
Oh, yeah.
We did indeed. The best
Damn
player
right
on the
we bloody did.
Hashtag growing the game.
Hashtag growing the game. The best player on the court, it looked like early in the game. Grant was huge in this game. Early knocking down shots. He I think he may have even airballed the shot, but I think we've been calling on this podcast for him to be a bit more quick trigger with either the shot or just attacking. And he quick triggered a corner 3 and he missed it like pretty badly, but it was like the perfect process in my opinion. Like if he's going to be playing, he just needs to. Sorry if you just saw the screen start to wobble there. He needs to be aggressive and needs to be making those decisions quickly. The defense was good tonight, but Eric in the chat here, the counter spin. He had Reggie Bullock in the post one time, and I'm just like, go Grant. Like if you get this like these medium-sized wings on you, when there's like 10 or less seconds to go on the shot clock, take him down in the post. That's a good shot for the Celtics offense. Like he's really good down low when he gets a mismatch. Like thick boy, that spin move, he gets down low, the little floaters he was knocking down today. It was a really all around game for Grant, and spoke to the more broadly the great performance from the bench, which we've been kind of lacking. Apparently, not that I saw the bad performance from the bench the last game. Apparently, there's this non-existent bench.
Yeah, that bench, like staying with Grant, but like 27-2, I think was the points total for the bench Celtics to the Mavs at halftime, and like if that's almost impossible to overcome unless you got like Doncic doing like his regular things. But yeah, man, Grant was spectacular. No, just decisiveness. Like I don't mind him, pump faking and driving in there, even though I think a better option is to shoot the 3. But like you said, Jake, just quick decision making, decisiveness. My favorite play that he had, I think he took it into the paint and was about to go up and then found Robert Williams right underneath, who ended up getting fouled. Again, we talk about the dubious assist. That's the right play to make. Probably should have given him like an honorary assist for that play. Obviously they didn't, but no, just the type of game that we've needed from Grant, that we need sort of, on a more consistent basis. Because with him coming off the bench with that kind of offense and defense, we look like how we looked, to start the season. So, and he's proving himself to be a very, very important piece of that machinery.
I got a couple things, Ben. Okay, so I'm working on a theory. It might be wrong, it might be right, but I think our offense is functioning well. A sign of our offense functioning well is Grant having a lot of 3-point attempts, like 4 or more. And I think when we play, it's like Yeah, it looks like the bench struggles, but if Grant's not getting 3-point attempts, that says that there's something wrong with the flow of our offense because Grant doesn't take step back off the dribble threes, right? So that's the first thing. So obviously that happened tonight. He got to take threes. When he gets to take threes, that's when he's effective because he's got his closeout game that he can drive off the closeouts. Now, one of his flaws I've noticed because I just love Grant Williams so much because I feel like he's like the NBA version of me. He's got the same flaws. And one of my things, I know I do this, is I like get my head out over my toes when I'm driving, like really going for it, right? And tonight he had one play where he hit I think he hit Brogdon. He like pump faked, took 2 hard dribbles, but stayed on balance and then bang, hit Brogdon in speed. I love it when he plays on balance. That spin move on Christian Wood was another example of it. Got him up a little bit in the air. Right, let's go in, but I'm keeping upright. And that's probably what I'm looking for him this year. I want him to stay aggressive, but I want him to stay on balance and upright. Another one to look out for is when he's on fast breaks as well. He gets a little excited, and he didn't do that. He didn't do that tonight. He had one play. Yeah, he had one play in the playback where I was like, easy, Grant, easy. And he just threw a screamer of a cross-court pass. I think it was to Marcus Smart. But anyway, that's my Grant Williams theory.
No, great.
Thanks,
theories.
Justin. I'm going to highlight that.
I love that you, Joe, just immediately drawing your own similarities to Grant Williams. That's good stuff. I do feel like you're the Grant Williams of this podcast as well. So it's a very apt comparison for you to make. His
Definitely
defensive
come off the
impact on
bench.
this game. Yeah, his defensive impact on this game was very notable as well. I know you've all sort of mentioned this as well, but I feel like, he's only 1 for 4 from 3. Eric Weiss, again in the chat, mentioned potential assists. So those shots are there for Grant. But he really impacted the game in other ways, very noticeable ways, particularly defensively and one-on-one defense. We were calling it out in the playback stream that we hosted live during the game prior to this podcast. He did get matched one-on-one with Luka on at least one defensive possession and just completely shut him down. So just his capabilities of defending essentially 1 through 5 and the fact that we've got Smart with those defensive capabilities as well, that matched with the team actually being locked in defensively for a change, just is the sort of thing that limits any good offensive team to under 100 points in a game, which is really good to see. There are other individual contributions that we should get to. Malcolm Brogdon is probably the next biggest one. I think it was a quiet game for Jaylen Brown, who was in foul trouble early, so perhaps we can skip over him, or he did have his impactful moments. Brogdon, Jackson, maybe sort of like rising back up into some level of good form. He did have some poor moments in this one, predictably so, but I felt like this was his strongest game in a while. What did you think, Jackson?
Definitely strongest in a while. I said on the live stream, he's got a bit of the Jeff Teagues about him. Seems to be automatic from 3. Take it in to try to handle that ball, take it into the paint, and forget about it. And I felt like that was true to begin with. At least, he was missing some floaters. He was just like taking shots that weren't bad shots, but they just were not going in. But from 3, man, he just feels automatic sometimes. And, I think it's just super important for like his confidence and to get a performance like this again, because it's obviously we attributed a lot of the bench production to Grant's scoring, but really like Brogdon was right there with him. Like I'm pretty sure that those guys will leave our scoring leaders like deep into the second quarter. So his contributions when he's on is super valuable to this team. So yeah, I'm going to need to see a repeat of this, probably, less loose handles, more just, good decisive decision making against the Spurs and more so before I can be like, all right, we're sweet with him. But mega important performance for this from Brogdon for sure.
He's been giving up a ton of live ball turnovers lately.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. That's the thing that really pisses me off about. Oh, that's the thing that really annoys me about him of late. Yeah, like the shooting's great. That's cool. But his role on this team is as a creator. And we can't have creators throwing the flipping pill away all the time. But tonight, that wasn't an issue. Except one time.
Yeah. Because he's only turned
allowed one.
So, yeah, as you were saying, Jake.
Yeah. It's one of those things, right? Like we're still in the early dating stages of the Malcolm Brogdon experience, right? Like
We swipe
you
right. Good match.
yeah, good match. We got the honeymoon phase. He
Some
was
good chat early.
knocking down, but yeah, exactly right. The chemistry was flowing. It was, we're in the small talk phase, easy. We're tipsy. Like, this is easy. This is good. And then, we start to get into it a little bit more, and we're like, there's a few little idiosyncrasies here that we don't love. And one of those appears to be one of the things that we are already struggling with, and one of like the biggest pain points of this entire team, which is live ball turnovers. We brought you in here, and everybody in the national media was like, "Oh, they brought in the guy who's going to settle them down and not do the live ball turnovers." Well, guess who's doing the live ball turnovers more than everybody else? Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, you're just like my ex.
I always end up with the same.
Why were you so readily available? How come no one else locked it down?
Yeah.
Why did it only
Why are
cost
you
us
so
Aaron
single?
Nesmith and some non-consequential pick? Oh, I see. No.
Yeah, wait a second. What, you're a 29-year-old 50, 40, 90 previous All-Star Rookie of the Year. What are we missing? What are we missing
It's too
here?
good to be true.
Great on paper.
Meanwhile, Aaron Nesmith absolutely flourishing. out there in
Exactly.
Indiana.
Exactly. Brogdon's just got to get back to simplifying. It's attack. Be aggressive and attack. And if it's not there, don't force it. Because he's incredible at getting to the rim. It's this then he forces up some junk, which is kind of similar to a live ball turnover, which how many Tatum layups do we see where he's flying into the stanchion, basically a live ball turnover back the other way.
Yep.
He throws up
And
junk.
it's even worse because he's lying on the ground and we're down.
Yes.
We're down a man.
Exactly. And so if it's not there, that's fine. You've created the pressure. Your gravity has now brought in the defense, even if it's not a double team. Now, if you kick it to Grant, for example, who you're running the bench unit with, Grant now has either space to get loose on that three or attack the closeouts that he's been getting so good at attacking. So I think he's just got to simplify. It's just shoot the open threes, drive the closeouts. Like you're an elite role player. That's what you are now. We don't need you to do too much. Attack closeouts. If the layup's there, take it. If not, bring it out, move the ball, get going. Like and that's what he did tonight. Take the open threes, get downhill, keep it moving.
Wonder if he needs to bring in like the Steve Nash move into his game a bit, where Steve Nash would dribble up around under the basket. You remember how he would do that?
Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah,
Malcolm,
Nash.
if he drives, it's just like I'm flipping this thing up
That's
no
it.
matter
we
what.
don't-
You know,
Exactly.
I don't need that from you, Malcolm.
Yeah, definitely a return to form for Brogdon tonight. Brogger, as we've decided to call him down here in Aussie land. I suppose the one other
Brog
individual performance, Brogdog, big Brogger
That's the one.
Derek White, I suppose we have to shout out for a couple of reasons. The Mavs were clearly going at him early in the game, and the Celtics did a really good job sort of adjusting to that point of attack from the Mavericks and bringing doubles to help Derek White in those particular situations. But then I thought for the most part, Derek White held his own quite well. He got burned at the rim a couple of times, as he tends to do, but for the most part, he kept his defender out on the perimeter and managed to avoid getting scored on there. I don't know if I can necessarily bring up Derek White in the same vein as Brogdon in terms of like poor performances recently. We did see a couple of threes from Derek White.
Yes, we did.
Joe, is it fair to call this a return to form for Derek White as well, or am I sort of missing the mark on that assessment?
I'm gonna zag a little here, Ben.
Please, zag away.
Okay, so for me, I think if Derek White made shots, great, but I don't think, and I say this with great reluctance because I really want to get his dad on the podcast. I think it'll be great.
Yes.
Richard,
I don't
please.
think Derek White's a 40% 3-point shooter. He's just not.
No.
And so if he makes shots, is it a return to form or is it an aberration? Probably more of an aberration. But what I would say is I think he's a consistent contributor in his role all the time. And for me, I feel good when he's on the floor. So to say it was a return to form for me would be like, no, I actually feel like he's been part of a lot of the good things that are happening. Defensively, he's good, but some matchups just don't work for him. But tonight he didn't I thought Luka was going to really give him trouble. It didn't seem to happen, so it was good.
Yeah.
Sorry.
He set the tone early, didn't he? You know, he was making life tough for Luka. I think he blocked him pretty early on as well. He had that fantastic block on Spencer Dinwiddie in the third quarter, which is the most memorable play of the game for me. But yeah, no, he just set the tone early. You know, Luka was getting nothing, early on that was, giving us any trouble. And I think Derek White was like mainly responsible for that defensive effort. Obviously, Smart was the one who then hounded him almost full time after that. But no, for what I think as far as his shooting goes, you're right, Joe. I'm probably not going to be the solution that we need, be it from the corner or wherever you need. But, defensively, that's what he can do on guys that, really should be getting the better of him. And he handled himself so well tonight.
So go ahead, Jake.
Look. The mistress, he brings it. Like, the difference between him and Brogdon, I think, like, Brogdon's got obviously the higher offensive ceiling, but when I think Derek White's having, like, when the shots aren't falling, he's always bringing, like, he's Marcus Smart 2.0 in this way, in that he makes the winning plays. Like, the block on Spencer Dinwiddie, like, Brogdon's not making those plays. Like, he's making those plays very rarely. Derek White, he's taking charges, he's getting hands in passing lanes. Like, that's what I love most about Derek White, is that he only has to take 4 or 5 shots to still have like a really impactful game. I find that he's got a tough spot on this team, in like, there's so many good defenders with size that he ends up being the guy that like people target because they have no other choice. Like Jimmy Butler in the Eastern Conference Finals, and with Luka, you need size. Like, he's so strong. Like, Derek White's he's the choice in like a lot of these lineups. But he's able to kind of get his hands in there and survive different kinds of ways. But yeah, those 2 threes that he hit in back-to-back possessions were at a really crucial moment as they were trying to build a lead.
They were separator shots.
Yes, huge separator shots. And they came off ball movement. Now, one was in one corner, next play was in the other corner. And it's like, we don't need you to be the 40+% 3-point shooter. It's like, he's a career 36% three-point shooter. Even if he's like Marcus, 34%, we don't need him to be high 40s or whatever, high 30s. It just needs to be like, he will punish you if you leave him wide open 3-point shooter, because that's what's going to happen in the playoffs. And it seems to be a confidence thing with him. So hopefully throughout this season, he can just build enough confidence that he's able to just take those wide open shots.
Yeah. I don't have an issue with him taking a wide open shot, even if he's a 30% 3-point shooter. It's okay. This is my Derek White theory. It's pressure to mistake. Pressure to mistake ratio. So Derek White puts so much more pressure on the opposition relative to the mistakes he makes.
Yes.
Like,
Agreed.
Smart is a high pressure, high mistake player, if that makes sense. Like, higher than Derek White, maybe. Smart puts heaps of pressure on the opposition all the time. Taking an open shot's not a mistake. It puts pressure on the defense, right? If he takes an open shot, he's putting pressure on. He's not making a mistake. I love that from players. So that's what I'm going to think in terms of pressure to mistake for Derek for players. It's going to be a new theory, man. A new theory. I'm going to work on it. We'll get it good.
I think the issue that I have with Derek White, and this is tough, and I'm actually glad that Jake is walking away for this one. There he goes. Is that I don't want to risk offending Jake here. He's just walked away. Is that
let's have a look at Jake's room.
Yeah,
I've actually got tidy up there, Jake.
I've got something, and maybe we can do this in a second while Jake's gone. I've got a little Jake something to share in a second. The issue, I'm sure this is a common issue among people who watch Celtics games, is that, opposing offenses clearly target Derek White on a regular basis, on like almost every possession they possibly can. They go at Derek White to some success, to relative success there. And then on the other end, on our offensive possessions, they are leaving Derek White somewhat open for those threes. and he is not hitting them at a very consistent clip. He was 40% in this particular game, but he's completely dropped off as far as his shooting percentage. So, yes, he can be aggressive, and his aggressiveness is great in terms of counteracting his defensive deficiencies, but, like, teams are taking advantage of him on either end of the court at the moment, and that's not great. I don't know. Am I nitpicking there? Am I being too harsh on Derek White?
Not bad. Not
I
bad.
think-
Not bad.
Yeah, that's probably accurate. Like, I think he's great at, hounding the ball handler, and he like really like makes their life, a bit of a problem, to say the least, when they're handling the ball. But as soon as like you're going to get him in the paint or you get him in the post, like forget it. Like there's going to be no resistance there. So I think they target him, it's kind of like the Sam Hauser thing. Like, as soon as he's on the floor, people will just go at him. And I just don't think it's the wisest move, or I don't think it's as successful as it can be, unless, like I said, you do get him in the paint. And yeah, like leaving him alone for the open shots. If he knocks him down, then we're going to end up winning most games by like 30, like we did tonight. But he's probably not going to be like that for the most part. So I trust him to make the right play overall. Is probably what I'm getting to say here.
I can't remember
is
what was
back.
Jackson or Jake saying, but I think, to your point, Ben, I think defenses are going to tend to target someone. It's the NBA. It's high pick and roll, right? And he might be the weakest link on the Celtics, right? That doesn't mean he's an overall weak link. Like, someone was going to be in that slot.
Yeah.
I
get you.
So, if Hauser's out there. Offensively, I think he does so much because he just does so much. Like, he's quick to the catch, if you know what I mean. Like, he's one of those guys who has that knack of running to the ball while it's in the air. And it's just a skill I happen to love, when I see guys do it. And it just, to me, he's always doing something productive, as best he can. I don't know. I'm biased. I'm biased to him and Grant.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think he's a net positive. And Jake, who is back with us now while you were gone, I did speak ill of Derek White, timed it well while you were out of the room.
How
literally.
dare you?
I know. I do have a little Jake tidbit to share here. Jake was kind enough to share this on Twitter before we went live on the podcast. We've got the first person view there of Jake, the makeshift podcast setup. We've got the Yeti microphone, the Doritos, couple of beers, the laptop. All set up, good to go. I just thought that was a fun little thing to share.
Yeah, we're adapting. We're on the road, and sometimes conditions aren't perfect. Yeah, sorry, I had to run out. We had a bleeding fiance's foot in the kitchen, and so
Oh no,
she's
okay.
She's gonna survive at least another half an hour.
Okay,
So.
all right. Cool. Great excuse. For
We
us
got time.
to
We got time.
Yeah. We'll move on, man.
man.
As far as these post-game pods are very difficult because we don't necessarily have a chance to fully digest the game and the post-game. So just refreshing Reddit here, looking for post-game comments as they come out. We've got Joe Mazzulla here saying that Jaylen Brown asked to guard Luka Doncic tonight. I don't know if I necessarily noted that. Sorry, I'm just looking at Eric's comment here in the chat.
Yeah, maybe not the marriage. Yeah, we'll find out. I guess.
We'll find out. We got to wrap this up pretty quickly, Jake, for your sake.
Yeah, TikTok.
Also, just bleeding out in the kitchen.
Jake, obviously, like if you need to leave at any point, please do.
It's all under control.
I don't know if I necessarily noted any Jaylen Brown on Luka like defensive possessions tonight. Am I crazy?
No.
Yeah, weird thing to share to the media because how many minutes did Jalen even play? Like, did he even crack 30 tonight? Yeah, right. Yeah, so I don't know.
I don't know.
That's
29.
cool. 29. Yeah, so cool that you asked. But the way, like the way that often the switches and stuff are happening, like they're not fighting over screens because when you fight over screens with Luka to stay like with that matchup, then he just cooks you. You can't go over screens with Luka. Like it makes it so easy for him. When he gets you on your hip, he's just like, as I said, he's so big, he's so broad, he barely feels you. Like Jaylen Brown's small to Luka. Like there's very few people in the league that can kind of like match him both height and girth wise. Which is why
Corn dog can mention girth-wise for sure.
Manscaped code first 18.
yeah. Exactly right.
I feel like sorry to jump in. I feel like Al Horford was getting most of the assignments on Luka, at least early, and he was doing a pretty good job too. So again,
Pretty
might
good,
just be the switching schemes that were running, but I felt like Al was the one taking care of him.
He was getting him, but Luka was getting it's like Al has the strength to mostly deal with Luka, but then he was kind of getting blown by a couple of times. Grant and Tatum are probably the top two guys that I want guarding Luka, but it feels like Luka knows that. Especially, I remember even going back to the game in Boston. Luka didn't want any part of being guarded by Tatum. He wants the smaller guys, the 6'4" guys.
Yeah,
Totally.
I was just going to say though, when Jalen asked, did he ask in the same way that I might ask my wife if there's anything I can do to get dinner started? I'm not really looking for a job. The answer I'm looking for is no.
You're asking about like 70% of the way through the process, and you're like,
yeah. You want a hand? Okay.
I can't cook anything, but would you like my help? This is the big post-game comment so far for me is from Joe Mazur. This is tweeted by Jay King. They showed me, quote, they showed me they could do it one time. We have to do it over and over again. That's obvious. Sure, like we all know this, but I guess I'm comforted by knowing that's part of the internal and clearly here in front of the press, the external dialogue as well. Like that's what we're all thinking, right? Like as fun as this game was, like, okay, great, let's do it against the Spurs because typically we play down to our opposition. We just did it against the SGA-less OKC Thunder. So typically one could easily deduce that we'll do that again against the San Antonio Spurs. Let's not do that. Let's like blow them out. Like let's end the game in the first quarter. I think that's really the, I think John Corrales referred to it as the measuring stick for this team for that next game is like, let's blow the next sub-tier opponent out within the first quarter. So that's really important to me.
I feel like everyone and their mother knows that Spurs game feels like that Spurs game is going to be a trap game. And you definitely didn't feel that about the OKC game. So I just think I'm a little bit more confident now than I was probably about 3 hours ago. Cause like, our mind goes dark places when you see your team, ship 150 points on the in a loss. So I was thinking, man, this is going to be a 4-0 road trip because, Luka's going to go off and then we're just going to, just not show up against the Spurs. For some reason, it's just like, teams like that, it's probably a terrible analogy, but like, do you ever like play ball and you do your absolute best to like make sure your technique is correct and like your feet are correct and everything like that, and then you just play with some dickhead who just like chest passing it in, and it's going in all the time. I just feel like make it rain. Precisely. The point I'm trying to make is it's almost like we try and do everything we can, and we just ended up getting like bested by this team that's just like throwing some shit up and just seeing what happens. And not that I'm saying the Spurs would do that because I think they try to play, I think Brad Stevens is trying to get us to play the 2014 Spurs way ever since he got here. And it's almost like when we go up against the pure test of that, we always seem to, not come out as well. But I think the last time we beat the Spurs was that Tatum 60 game. That's it. Yeah. The last time we beat the Spurs was the Tatum 60 game. So like, I hope they're sick of losing to the Spurs because I sure as hell am. There's a guy I work with as a Spurs fan, and he is so lippy for a team that's, tanking. So need to get it done.
Because the Spurs have beaten us when they shouldn't have, like 3 out of the 4 last times we played them.
Yeah.
Thankfully we traded for one of the guys that was the main reason we lost, and the other guy is now on another team as well. So there's really no reason that we should be losing to the Spurs. Yeah. Eric, in the chat, these guys, I don't know if this is who they are or not. And expecting like a high level of consistency from them is probably unrealistic. And this goes back to what we were saying when they had the slide previous to beating the Timberwolves, the Bucks, and the Rockets. It's like, I was saying this is kind of who they are as people, going back years now. Like they just fall into bad habits for multiple stretches every year. Like the year they were the 2 seed again in the COVID year where they made the conference finals and lost to the Heat. Like there were lulls in that season too. Like every year, and the consistent piece of it is Jalen, Jason, and Marcus. Years. Like this whole era of the Jays plus Marcus, like we've experienced this, and I think you just have to take solace in the fact that like what happened on Christmas, what happened tonight, like go through the marquee matchups through this calendar year and even previous, like obviously the most recent playoff run, like when they're playing their best and they're locked in, they are one of the best teams in the league, no question. It's just I don't know why. I don't know what it is. Like it's something in the psyche of the fabric of the team where they just can't like maintain a certain level of consistency.
If this is the Eric Weiss that I think I remember from the real GM days,
It is.
it is Ryan Gomes, man. Eric Weiss love Ryan Gomes. So we need to get Ryan Gomes in here. Come on.
Go me.
Can I get an amen?
Yeah, 100%.
Eric's rubbing his hands somewhere at the moment. I said this on the last podcast, but the inconsistency, it comes down to the fact that our best player is 24 years old. And everyone gets in line behind Jason Tatum, who is great. He's a great, very talented basketball player, ahead of his time maturity-wise. But he's 24 at the end of the day, and I think that you can attribute that lack of consistency to that fact. He's not even in his prime yet as a basketball player or really as a human being. And there's leadership components of his personality that need to be considered there. And he's not really necessarily even close to scratching the surface of what his peak could be in that sense. I think until we get really to that point where Tatum is flourishing as a leader, we can expect this continued inconsistency as far as the players around him. I think that's fair enough.
His performances need to be as consistent as his interviews are dull.
There you go.
As we were touching on in the live stream, just got to keep at it. It's all good. On to the next one. Blah 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 blah. Just give me some of that with your game. Maybe like with a little bit more, pizzazz, but consistent. That's what we need.
We need this team to win a title so badly because if this is what teams that have won titles kind of do, is it's like, we show you we're like one of the best teams in the league when we have to, and then we just do dumb stuff other times because we can. But they don't have that yet. So do that, and then you can just be yourselves, and that's fine.
Now, we've got to move on, otherwise we're going to be here all
I know.
all night. The Boston Celtics, according to Shams Charani on Twitter, trading center/forward Noah Vonleh and cash considerations to the San Antonio Spurs. Presumably, well, it's been documented after the fact to shed some tax money there. I believe they managed to save themselves approximately $7 million in luxury tax money there as a result of making that trade. Just a quick around the room here, starting with you, Jackson. I mean, there's little to glean from this trade other than like clearly it's like a cost saving exercise and the by way of opening up a roster spot as well. Any thoughts on the Vonleh trade or any parting thoughts on Vonleh as a Celtic player?
He had a great 2-3 weeks at the end of preseason, right at the start, and I thought, oh, hang on, have we found ourselves a diamond in the rough here? But no, he was garbage time commander number 3. So it's obviously I'm positive that this move was made with a bit of a purpose. I think if you're in the tax, I think saving $7 million here, whatever. I know $7 million is nothing to sneeze at, but I mean, I just think in the overall scheme,
no, it's not, Jackson.
Yeah,
to $1 billion, it should be.
Yeah, but I just think in the context of like trying to build a championship roster, saving a little money here and there, is priority B. Priority A is creating a team that wins, and if that opens up a slot that brings someone in that helps us win, then that's obviously the main goal here. So I'm optimistic that it's going to result in a player acquisition or something in the near future.
Oh, there's going to be moves made, whether buyout guy or a trade. Like Brad, everyone's very, very aware that the Celtics have a really good shot at winning the championship. There's no Warriors, there's no LeBron team, there's nothing in the league that's like we can't beat any iteration of what's out there right now. This is just to make space, whether it's a buyout guy, it's Justin Holiday from the Hawks. We did a little mini, and we'll do more of it as we get to the trade deadline. Javonte Green. There's plenty of guys out there that can help bolster the kind of the depth of this team. we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, right now it's like Vonleh. Yeah, it was a good shot. There was a reason we had 5 bigs on the roster. Rob was injured. We weren't sure about Cornette. So we brought in extra Blake and extra Vonleh. And honestly, I still think this is like a win, like a positive. Like if you were to grade the Noah Vonleh move on the Celtics, it's still like a B minus. Or like it was Noah Vonleh. It cost nothing. He helped you like actually survive the non-Rob Williams games. For the most part, like it's really all you could ask for.
Game 1 against Philly, he
Yes.
had legitimately good defensive possessions and stretches against Joel Embiid. So I thank him and wish him well for that contribution alone. We also got a top.
You got a lot of
55
hate on that
protected-
tweet, Ben.
I did. I ended up deleting the tweet. That's
What?
the only tweet I've ever deleted. Because I had
It was
multiple
so
people.
innocuous.
Yeah, it was pretty innocuous. Just thanking him for his time and hoping that he gets minutes elsewhere where he can go out and commit all 6 fouls in less minutes. But a lot of hate for that tweet on Twitter.
Did you
so I
get
ended up
ripped for
removing
that tweet? What?
Not a big controversy guy online, so I removed it. But anyway, I digress. He had some good stretches. He had some bad stretches. That's pretty much the norm for someone at the 15th roster spot or the 13th roster spot. So not particularly fussed there. And we did get that top 55 protected second round pick,
Yes,
which
sir,
is short
Jeffrey
enough as a
Francis in the
superstar.
chat. Way to remind us. What a great trade. Brad Stevens does it again.
Yeah, there you go.
Genius.
Final thing to touch on here before we wrap up. The initial All-Star fan votes are in, and unfortunately all I've got here on my run sheet is talk about Tatum All-Star. So I don't have the exact figures, but essentially I believe he came in 4th in voting for Fords, and therefore is not currently projected to make that starting lineup. So if you're listening, if you're watching, pause, open up a new tab, whatever you're watching on, consuming on, go vote Jason Tatum as an All-Star, because obviously he needs that fan vote to prop him up initially here. Jake, do you think that that's going to stand here, or do you think once the media and the coaches get involved, we'll see a correction in the All-Star voting projections?
This is a whole front court, back court, positionless basketball philosophical discussion that we don't have time for today. But like, it's the fact that Giannis, Embiid, KD, and Tatum aren't all going to start for the All-Star game is just so dumb. Maybe I can understand it slightly more for all NBA, but like for the All-Star game, it's like why would any of those guys be on the bench? It's just ridiculous. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's just kind of dumb. He's like 100,000 votes behind Embiid, so he could easily get back in the race. But yeah, it's a tough it's a popularity contest right now, and like those like KD has heaps of fans from being in the league longer. So Celtics fans got to get on that.
It's January 6th here in the Antipodes. And I don't know how comfortable we are talking about elections.
I was gonna say happy anniversary. Yeah, big day.
I mean,
what he's saying is we storm the NBA if things go wrong, right?
Yeah, you're exactly right. Adam Silver, watch out, mate.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard for me because those 3 players, in my view, are better than him. So,
not Embiid for me, no way.
Well, sure, but I mean, your mileage may vary. That's fine. For me, they are. So it's hard for me to get too mad about it. But he's clearly like, I can't think of any other player in the East that's better than him. And if we were to make an imaginary team, I feel like this is how it should be done with all these awards votes. It's like, it's not positionless. You have to put out a team that you think would work as an actual team.
Yeah, but this team would obviously work.
Yeah, it would. It totally would. I'd be fine with Tatum in as the guard in that scenario.
You could take the top 5 East and do a starting lineup as Butler, Tatum, Embiid, Giannis, and Durant. That would work as a team. Like as far
they'd be really good, I think.
Yeah, 10 assists.
That'd
Tatum,
be all right.
Put him in a point guard.
That'd be all right.
Yeah,
you're right.
But you couldn't start like you couldn't have like Giannis, Durant, Embiid, and like I don't know, Evan Mobley and Pascal Siakam. Like that wouldn't work as a team. I think maybe we should try and do that for the awards and All-Star games.
Like, I mean, it's the Brad Stevens, the ball handlers, bigs, wings thing, maybe.
Yeah.
But even then, it's like Jokic is a ball handler now.
It
So
punishes
it's like, good luck.
people. It punishes people whose strength is versatility, though, because if you're adequate or above average in two different areas, but not elite, if you're not like Jason Tatum, you know, you might find a better shooting guard or a better small forward, but he's better than every individual in those categories overall. You know, it sort of punishes those guys that they have that versatility to their game.
That's why he
if they
missed
can-
All NBA a couple of times. Is because he got voted as a guard and a forward.
Just as well, by the way. I don't-
Yeah, Wick.
he can make
dodged a
that once
bullet
he's
there.
signed his max. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we should wrap this up, guys. We're running a little long here. We've talked about the game.
No,
We've
not
talked about
us.
some of the news. Yeah, not us. We never do that. Anything else
Jake's
that you want to
fiance is
circle
still
back
dying,
on?
so-
Yeah,
hang
we've
on.
got a bleeding foot out there behind that door
Well,
behind Jake.
because my parents are watching, and so I get a message in the group chat. My mum to the group chat. Hey, Lucy? Is your foot okay? And so
Oh, no.
that's all happening.
Well, shout out to Jake's parents. We should probably wrap it up there. That's going to do it for this one. Have a great weekend, folks. The Green with Envy podcast, they're going to be back on this feed sometime around Sunday night, Monday morning. We'll be back mid next week. Thanks again for tuning in. Jackson, Joe, Jake, love your work, guys. Thanks again.
Peace.
Cheers,
All right,
mate.
until next time, go Celtics. Peace.